I, 37 male, found out my GF, 25 female, cheated on me with my son, 20 male, and I want to cut them both off, but they're begging me to forgive them both. I'm aware that he sees my specifics. I was a young father. My kid was born before my now-deceased wife, and I were even 17 years old. She died abruptly at the age of 22, not long after we married, and I've been a single father ever since. It's been difficult, but I believe I did my best up to this point. I hadn't really had time to have any relationships before I met her. I'd thrown myself into being a father and focusing on my career. I'm not claiming up in a monk, simply that I've never done anything substantial. There has never been someone serious enough to introduce my kid to. But I met AJ a little over 3 years ago. I wasn't anticipating it, but I was soon head over heels. We were more informal for the first 6 months or so, but when we realized we loved one another, we made it official. I was even preparing to propose to her on her 26th birthday next month. I was even planning on having my kid serve as my best man. I didn't introduce them right away since I wasn't sure how he'd react, so we waited. But once they met last year, we all got together and everything was fine. Granted, they haven't seen each other much this year owing to lockdown and his being at university, but I didn't think anything of it. I couldn't visit her much last month because of the lockdown. However, I've observed that she's been a little silent and grumpy during the last several weeks. I questioned her, and she said it was because she was overwhelmed. Similarly, I've observed my son becoming a little reclusive, but I figured it was because he's been busy with university. When I saw her again this weekend, I was extremely taken aback, so I called her out on it. She sobbed and acknowledged she had cheated on me. Exactly like that. I was astounded, so I was trying to pry it out of her, and she acknowledged it had something to do with my son. She went out with her friends just before lockdown began in November, and she ran across my son at the tavern. They were irritated, so they shared a cab and ended up drunken. I literally put her out there and then said I'd never see her again. She was begging, pleading, creating a spectacle, you name it. After that, I summoned my son and addressed him. He said it was real, that it was a tremendous mistake, and begged me to forgive him. I told him he has to remain somewhere else, and I don't want to look at him any longer. He's at my mother's house. I haven't told her what he did, but given how close we've always been, she understands it's serious. She's been calling, emailing, and messaging me, pleading for another opportunity, as has my kid. I packed up her belongings that she had left here and placed them in a garbage bag in her front lawn. I even tossed her Christmas gifts, allowing her to enjoy them early. I'm completely disturbed. They were the two individuals I love the most in the world. I want to marry her, have children with her, and spend the rest of my life with her. Similarly, he was more than just my kid. He was also my closest friend. I made so many sacrifices for him in order to provide him with a wonderful existence, and they both stabbed me in the back in the most heinous manner possible. I'm not sure I'll ever forgive them again. As far as I'm concerned, they're welcome to each other. I'm devastated. Added, I almost forgot to mention that I've scheduled an appointment at the Clap Clinic. If I can't trust her not to cheat on me even once, who knows how many times she has? Is there anything else to do on Reddit? Is cutting them off and moving on the best course of action? Edit, to everyone who said next time, there will be no next time. I'm done with women, love, and relationships in general. Edit, I'm missing my wife tonight. She was supposed to be the one and only lady for me. They'll never be able to manufacture them like her again. Update. So I practically ran into AJ, my ex. I asked her the truth, what happened, and whether there had been anything else going on prior. She was vehemently opposed. It was basically a question of her having a drink with her friends and my kid being in the bar and getting drunk together. He acknowledged he liked her when they were sharing a cab, made a move, and that was the end of it. She was saying things she'd never say ordinarily, but since she hadn't seen me in a long and he reminded her so much of me that night, it just occurred. I encouraged her to quit blaming the alcohol or anything else and to take responsibility for herself, no one else. I also told her that she's the first person I've allowed in love since my ex-wife died, and that I've been happier with her in the last 3 years than I had been for years before that. I'd even told her I was going to propose to her. She sobbed again, telling me how sorry she is and pleading with me for another opportunity, saying she would never forgive herself. I told her she needed to do it one day so she would learn from it. But that's it for us. I'm banning her phone number and email, and I don't want to hear from her again, and I left. I feel a lot better now that I've met her. As upset as I am, it's nice to have some closure. Simply to demonstrate that I don't really despise her, but rather pity her. Her inability to manage her booze or keep it in her trousers has lost her a connection with someone she loves about, and will certainly harm her relationships for years to come. Not that I believe she is any less accountable or deserving of the consequence. It also enabled me to realize how immature she is. Before this, I was blissfully unaware because I was content. It's made me really aware of it now. Never ever again. Now, this is my kid. I realized the other day that I was really upset when I wrote my post, and the way I was typing it looked to flatly disavow him. But please understand, he is my kid. My flesh and blood, and I adore him. He's also my wife's son, and I'd never be able to get rid of him for her. But he has let me down and deeply damaged me, and I have lost not just all respect for him, but also all faith in him. So I met him and got his version of the tale as well. It was much the same as hers, with the exception that he claimed she was being extremely flirtatious with him, and she said he reminded her of me, and that's when he told her he had a crush on her and made his move. I told him everything I written above, that I love him but no longer respect him or trust him. I also informed him about my intentions, including the fact that I was planning to propose to her and even have him as my best man. He was devastated, and he was completely quiet until breaking down and weeping. I told him we needed to stop communicating for a while. He needed to find a job and stop working with me on weekends like he is now, and we needed to speak to my parents to see if he could stay with them for a time. But in order to do so, I want him to be a grown-up and tell them why to their face, as well as deal with the situation like a grown-up. As a result, I took him there and forced him to tell them. They were heartbroken, not only unhappy, but the expression in my mother's eye, I'll never forget it. She expressed her dissatisfaction with him, saying she never expected him to do anything like this. I asked her if he may remain there in the near future, but not for free. He must pay for his own room and board, as well as contribute to the expenses, but he must provide his own food. She agreed because she admired me. I also sat him down and showed him that I'd moved over a big sum of money, explaining that it was money I was saving for AJ engagement ring, but given what's occurred, I wanted to keep it as a memory and use it to pay his grandparents' rent if nothing else. He was really taken aback, wanting to hand it back to me. I informed him that if he did that, we were done. We promised to keep in touch at least until Christmas, when we could all, myself, him, and my parents, spend the holiday together. I've spent the last few days mostly reflecting. The focus is mostly on myself and why I chose AJ in the first place. I was quite pleased when she asked me out, despite the fact that I would never consider anybody that young. But, in retrospect, she was the same age as my wife when she died, was of the same ethnicity, mixed race, and even worked in the same field. So, I think I went for it, because she reminded me of my late wife. Which, to be honest, makes me really sad. I'm aware that I can't blame anybody else for this. But it also makes me realize that she, AJ, was just my second significant relationship in my whole life. Imagine that, a 37-year-old man, having so few relationships that a lady 5 years older than my kid accounts for a significant portion of my dating history. It also makes me miss my wife a lot. I've been enjoying some me time over the last few days, watching an Alan Partridge marathon. It was my and my wife's favorite thing to watch together, and it helps me feel near to her when I'm depressed. Edited to add, I'm trying to contact an old therapist I saw after my wife died and setting up an appointment with him. I'm going to see if he'll take on my kid as well. Edit, as a few people have mentioned, we may not be able to visit the same therapist owing to a conflict of interest. I hadn't considered it, so maybe I'll seek a reference from him for someone else who is more appropriate. Thank you. I absolutely need to work on myself before dating again. I believe I have too many difficulties to be a suitable companion right now, and if / when I do, I'm never going to date someone her age again. I'm thinking of going with a tight 80s policy of just looking for persons born in the 1980s and absolutely no one born after 1989. Thank you, and please accept my apologies for the wall of words.